Hello, I am Peter Okwacha. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. Mistreatment in Quranic schools. We have a special report from northern Nigeria where activists say the problem is endemic.
They don't have places to sleep. They are just kept outside. And when they committed an offense, the Malam used barbaric way of discipline.
The cost of Ebola, both human and financial, and the problems aid workers are facing in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Tackling depression in South Africa following the death of hip-hop legend HP. Also on the program, Let There Be Light. We look at how solar-powered backpacks are helping children with their homework in Ivory Coast.
It really makes life easier for these kids. We have seen that these bags have improved the academic performance of some children.
And in sports, top officials from FIFA gather for a meeting in Kigali, Rwanda, as the prize money for the Women's World Cup gets a massive increase. Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. We start tonight with a special report into maltreatment of children at some traditional Quranic schools in Nigeria. Activists have told the BBC they have uncovered evidence of abuse of children as young as 4 years old. An estimated 8 million attend the schools in Nigeria, but efforts to integrate them into mainstream education have not been successful. Our correspondent Ishaq Khalid has visited Gombe State to look at the claims. You may find his report disturbing.
The struggle of life. This 13-year-old boy in northern Nigeria was sent to a traditional Quranic school known as Tsangaya to acquire knowledge. But this is what he got. Both his hands amputated following alleged cruelty by one of his teachers. He tells me the teacher tied his hands together with a rope and left him in the heat of the sun for hours to force him confess to stealing a mobile phone, which he denies. The hands became infected and without hospital treatment began to decay. The boy was rescued and taken to hospital by human rights activists and social welfare workers. Doctors had to cut off his hands.
Whenever I see someone walking with their hands, I say I wish I also have hands so that I can help my family and even others. Now I can't eat food or take bath by myself. Even going to the toilet, someone has to be with me to help.
His father says poverty pushed him to send a child to a traditional Quranic school because he didn't need to pay school fees there. He has since withdrawn his 3 other children from such schools.
When I sent my child to the school, I never thought he would find himself in such a problem. I really regret sending him.
The teacher of the child is currently being detained, awaiting trial. We've not been able to speak to him. This boy's experience is particularly severe, but it is not isolated. It is difficult to get national figures, but in Gombe State alone, activists say they have recorded more than 160 cases of serious maltreatment since the beginning of this year.
They don't have food to eat. They don't have places to sleep. They are just kept outside. And when they committed an offense, the Malam used barbaric way of discipline. They even tied some of the boys or caned them or locked them in their room without giving them food.
Deep-rooted tradition, extreme poverty, and general decay in the education sector are being blamed. Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world, more than 10 million according to UNICEF.
Children in northern Nigeria, mostly from poor families, are sent to Tsangaya traditional Quranic schools like this. Some of them hundreds of kilometers away from their parents. They are taught how to memorize the Quran. Schools like this are common here.
Owners of these traditional schools, known as Malams, say blanket allegations of maltreatment of the students are unfair.
Parents bring their children here. We teach them the Quran and good morals, how to respect their parents and others.
Religion can be defined as belief.
The Nigerian authorities are also attempting to integrate the traditional Quranic schools into the mainstream education system by establishing dozens of model schools like this, where the children are given both Islamic and secular education as well as vocational skills. But the traditional schools are still in operation. The model schools are grossly inadequate. In Gombe State, for example, out of estimated 279,000 Tsangaya students, only about 4,500 are in the model schools, according to officials. Despite best efforts, for children like the 13-year-old amputee, the traditional Quranic school system has permanently scarred their lives. And with the extremely slow pace of reforms in Nigeria's education sector, many others remain at risk. Ishaq Khalid, BBC News, Gombe, Northern Nigeria.
Gabonese President Ali Bongo has been hospitalized in Riyadh. No specific details have been revealed, but according to Saudi state media, the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, visited Mr. Bongo in Riyadh's King Faisal Hospital and inquired about his health. President Bongo was scheduled to appear on Wednesday on a panel at the Future Investment Initiative Forum in Riyadh, but he was not seen during the discussions and organizers of the conference offered no explanation. Gabon's presidency told AFP News Agency that it was nothing serious. Mr. Bongo took over as leader of the oil-rich Equatorial African nation in 2009 on the death of his father Omar Bongo, who had ruled since 1967. In 2016, Ali Bongo was re-elected by just a few thousand votes in controversial presidential polls. The Ebola outbreak that ravaged Sierra Leone, Guinea and Liberia cost their economies far more than previously estimated. That's according to a study in this month's Journal of Infectious Diseases, who now put the total cost at an estimated $53 billion. The disease killed at least 11,000 people between 2013 and 2016, more than all other known Ebola outbreaks combined. But that indirect consequence of the outbreak are often forgotten. The new study factors in things like long-term effect on the 17,000 Ebola survivors and the impact on health workers. They find that the biggest indirect cost came from the additional deaths from non-Ebola causes. Patients with HIV, malaria and other conditions struggled to access health care as the outbreak tied up resources. As regular viewers of this program will be aware, the virus has struck again, this time in Beni, the northeastern DR Congo. It has already claimed more than 150 lives, and this is exacerbated by fighting between several rebel groups operating in the region. Owen Barry is the area manager for ICRC in Beni. I spoke to him earlier about the challenges his team faces in that area.
The zone where Ebola is now taking place around Beni was a volatile situation prior to the outbreak. It's been 20 years now that this zone has known armed violence, armed conflict, and the humanitarian consequences that come with that. So, of course, now for a population that was already vulnerable, this is a new trauma. The complicated and volatile situation poses some difficulties for a humanitarian response. And now that Ebola has come, we have put massive resources into the Ebola response itself. We've had to adapt some of our other programs given the complexity of the situation. For example, our medical evacuation program has become more complicated. Obviously, to evacuate people from an Ebola zone is not so easy. As a result, what we've done is we've stepped up our material support to local health structures, material assistance in terms of actual material can be used in the hospital, but also in training and building the capacity of local health structures to be able to treat a greater number of wounded locally. So we have put a lot of resources into our Ebola response. Some of our activities we have had to adapt, and others outside of the Ebola zone itself continue, such as material assistance for those affected by the conflict.
I understand that there have been few incidents of workers being attacked by people in that area when they're trying to bury those who have been killed by the Ebola virus. What are the conditions like for you and your workers on the ground there in Beni?
It's a complicated situation. And a key element is the fact that this population has already known trauma from the armed violence in the area. And Ebola is a scary disease. It's natural that, particularly at the beginning, that people are fearful and suspicious. And this leads to difficulties in accessing to make sure that Ebola response activities are carried out. But again, it's important to note that with a really strong communication, a really strong engagement with the community, as is being done by the Red Cross volunteers in place, that yes, the community starts to see the impact that the humanitarian response has, and the community itself starts to engage in the response.
Let's take a quick look now at other stories making the headlines across Africa. Thousands of Congolese opposition supporters have staged protests in the capital Kinshasa and other cities against the use of electronic voting machines in the long-delayed polls scheduled for December. They fear that the machines are unreliable, voting lists will be used to rig the election. Security forces were deployed in strength in all the main cities. In Kenya, heavy rain has caused widespread flooding along the coast, including the city of Mombasa. A number of people are feared dead in Malindi after the collapse of a building that was under construction. The meteorological department has warned of possible flash floods across 5 counties in the coastal region. The president of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, has told Tunisian authorities that the EU will consider removing the country from blacklists of states at high risks of money laundering and terrorist financing. During his visit to Tunis, he said both sides will work together to ensure that the reforms and measures necessary are implemented. And Namibia has scrapped a requirement for companies seeking mining exploration licenses to be partly owned and managed by black Namibians. The policy was introduced in 2015, but critics said it threatened the country's ability to attract investment. Mining makes up 12% of Namibia's GDP. South African hip-hop lost a legend this week. Jabulani Tambo pioneered rapping in his home language, Setswana. Double HP, as he was known, was open about his struggle with depression and how he wanted to take his own life on numerous occasions. An inquest is underway to determine his exact cause of death. According to statistics, over 6,000 people kill themselves every year in South Africa, but experts say suicide deaths are often underreported. Nomsa Maseko reports from Johannesburg.
What would summer be without Jabba?
A reality his fans will now have to come to terms with. A summer without Jabba. South African hip-hop legend Jabulani Double HP Ntambo spoke out about several suicide attempts and even wrote a song to raise awareness. According to government statistics, the vast majority of suicide victims in South Africa are men. 19-year-old Msizi Goboga attempted suicide several times while in high school. Together with his twin brother Mehdi, they now raise awareness about depression and mental health. They engage people in traffic and run counseling sessions led by professionals. The brothers also give out advice on social media.
On a daily basis, we hear from our elders, men don't cry, men are strong. Indoda nyamezela is a saying in Xhosa, which means a man withstands whatever comes his way. So whatever comes your way, you face it, you're a man. It came to a point where I had bottled things up for so much and I didn't have an outlet. I didn't have a way of releasing the pain that I felt. I didn't have a way of dealing with the emotions that I was feeling, the self-loathing that I felt. And just the hatred and pointing at myself, why can't you do this better?
Msizi says even his twin brother failed to understand his struggle.
In the black community, depression or mental health as a whole is seen as a demonic possession. It is seen as attention-seeking. It covers you as the black sheep of the family, you know. Parents don't want you to go tell people you're depressed, I have a problem, because they don't want you to taint their family name.
Mental health experts say there just isn't enough help to go around.
About 18 suicides a day happen in South Africa, which translates to 450 people a month, and that is a lot of people considering that, you know, in our country we do have the relevant medication expertise, but unfortunately we're not spread out wide enough as psychiatrists and mental health care workers to look after, diagnose in the first place and look after those people.
The brothers and their mother sought professional help. And while experts say peer counseling is useful for young men coming to terms with depression, therapy could save a life. Nomsa Masego, BBC News, Johannesburg.
You're watching Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okwacha. Still to come on the programme, Guinea's Naby Keita set to miss Liverpool's fixture this weekend. I'm Peter Okwacha. The top story this hour. Activists have told the BBC they have uncovered evidence of abuse of children in traditional Quranic schools in Nigeria. Now, the issue of electricity, or the lack of it, if you like, is one millions of people face every day in Africa. But on a continent that's blessed with sunshine, more people continue to find ways to harvest solar energy. And that's what one company has done for school children in the Ivorian village of Alepela. Clarice Fortune has the story.
This backpack is bringing light to so many children in Alepela, a village in Ivory Coast, some 100 kilometers north of Abidjan. It's run on solar power, and on a continent that has issues with electricity, for kids like 8-year-old Marie-France, doing homework in the dark is a thing of the past.
We run out of electricity, and children often study with lanterns, so every year the results are catastrophic.
Évariste Akoumian, who created the solar pack after his car broke down one night, says the light in the backpacks can run for 3 hours, saving families from relying only on oil-burning storm lanterns and battery-powered torches as their only sources of light.
It was necessary to find a solution that would help the children to be able to study over and continue their courses easily. And that's when the idea came up to develop a solar bag.
He's been working with an Ivorian charity, Iwozone, that promotes education for girls in rural Africa. The charity has raised funds to provide the backpacks, which cost about $23 a piece.
It really makes life easier for these kids. We have seen that these bags have improved the academic performance of some children. So this year again, we did everything we could to get the bags.
For Marie-France, her older sister Lucienne, and the other children and their families in this village, the future looks bright. Clarisse Fortuné, BBC News.
You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sports. Mimi?
Thank you very much, Peter. Top officials from football's world governing body FIFA have been meeting in Kigali, Rwanda today. Some key decisions were made at the gathering. FIFA Council are to increase the prize money from the Women's World Cup from $15 million to $30 million. It's doubled from 2015. That sum will come into play starting with the Women's World Cup next year. FIFA President Gianni Infantino also said that $20 million would be made available for pre-tournament preparations. Infantino also met with the Rwandan President Paul Kagame, where they talked about stadium security. Also discussed today were Infantino's controversial plans for a new Club World Cup and Global Nations League. FIFA say they've now set up a task force to examine the proposals.
I mean, everyone agrees that the Club World Cup needs to be revamped. Everyone in the world agrees that the Club World Cup needs to be revamped. There are some parties who have different interests, and that's fine and that's legitimate, and that's okay, but everyone agrees that we have to revamp it. And, you know, we were not going to decide today how to revamp them. There are different options on the table. We will look at them and we will see what ultimately we take. So I don't understand why, for something which is a statutory duty of FIFA, which is to organize competitions,
Cameroon is set to play five-time world champions Brazil in a friendly on November the 20th in the UK. Their football association confirmed it via their Twitter page today. The African champions are due to host the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations next year. This will make it the sixth time that both sides will meet. And let's take a look at some of the other stories. In football, Nigeria's manager is still interested in persuading Everton's Ademola Lookman to play for the Super Eagles. The 21-year-old helped England to win the 2017 Under-20 World Cup, but can still switch allegiances as he's yet to play for the senior side. In cricket, Zimbabwe have lost the third and final one-day international in Bangladesh. Zimbabwe were beaten by 7 wickets, which means they've lost 3-0. In tennis, all roads lead to the men's end-of-the-year ATP Tour final in London next month. South Africa's Kevin Anderson hoping to make the top 8 players in the world. He's currently on court against Croatia's Borna Coric, battling for a place in the semi-final. And after a busy week in Europe, attention is back on the Premier League this weekend. For Liverpool, Guinea's Naby Keita has been ruled out for their Saturday fixture at home against Cardiff City. He's still nursing a hamstring injury, which he picked up during an Africa Cup of Nations qualifier. But ahead of their match, Jurgen Klopp touched upon his team scoring more goals through set pieces.
Actually, it's quite difficult to talk about set pieces because if you don't want to talk about it, you only the routines, there are different runs, different things. We have, meanwhile, within the preseason already, it was clear at the start of the preseason that we want to focus on it because it was not a proper strength of us, and that's what we try to do and what we do actually week in and week out. Doesn't work out all the time. That's how it is, but yeah, it's a different. I would say it's a different approach.
A different approach. And that's all the sport. Back to you, Peter.
Many thanks, Mimi. And that's it from Focus on Africa for this week. But I'll leave you with a story from Malawi. Kelke Kambwiri is an artist based in the capital city, Lilongwe. He emerged in 2014, and in the 4 years since, he has taken the Malawian music scene by storm. Focus TV met the rising star during his first trip to London.
My parents used to say, don't do music. You need to go to school. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. Just go do school. Like. My name is Kelly Kambwiri. My stage name is Kelke. I'm Malawian artist. I come from Lilongwe, in one of the biggest townships. Kawale, yes, I'm proud of it, Kawale. I'm the second born in a family of 4, the only male child. I do R&B and Afro-pop. I like to connect with the people. I like people to relate to my music. My music is teaching. Most of the times I talk about love. That's what I do. I can just wake up today and release a song and have so many downloads because almost everyone is on social media. So technology has helped us a lot because it's very easy for people to buy our music on the internet, to download them on the internet, so it's helping a lot.
When I try to move on,
I hope to achieve a lot in music. I hope to be one of the best African artists. I hope in the near future I can be that one artist that has won so many awards in Africa, collaborated with a lot of artists. That's what I hope to achieve as an artist.
I don't want you, juju, juju, juju.
When you're doing what the people want, I think there is money in the music, and I'll try my best to do what would bring food on my table, what would bring food for my kids. I'll try everything to make to make it big, you know. Makitana nikavutika ine, yeah, yeah, yeah.